Good evening again from Jerusalem. I'm very happy to be here. Well, yes, we're going to go to Ethiopia this evening, your daytime, and it will be a kind of look out about one of the weirdest and wonderful countries of the history. So as you can see, what is written here in Hebrew, Arnold Toynbee, a British historian, always said that Ethiopia is something else. It's even weird because its history, I mean, the history of Ethiopia is so long, yet it is something which is hard to understand because that country, for the last 3,000 years, it's a very old and ancient country, lots of history, has not been captured or conquered by any strange army. It has been independent for 3,000 years. Which is something unique. Just think about the history of the land of Israel or Greece or Rome, of course, of America or whatever. It's hard to find a place which has kept his autonomy and independence for so many thousands of years. Ethiopia is one of them. Why and how? How it became so unique that no one was able to capture it. The Europeans, the Arabs, the Crusaders. There was only one short time for 5 years, from 1936 to 1941, that Mussolini from Italy captured Ethiopia, or Abyssinia in its other name, for 5 years. These 5 years were very tragic, but just think of that. It's only five years among 3,000 years since Ethiopia was, let's call it, established as a kind of a political or social or cultural entity. Another thing I want to say before we start, my colleagues just spoke about that Ethiopian Jewish unique holiday, which starts tomorrow, the Sigd. Well, I will speak now also about the Christianity. Ethiopia is a Christian country in its roots, although there is a majority of Muslims in that country. More than 100 million of people. The population in Ethiopia is very big. The point is that the Christian culture of Ethiopia, that is the Ethiopian Christians, they have a culture which is very similar to Judaism. Yes, not many people knows that. But the Ethiopian Christians, they keep Shabbat. They prevent themselves. They are not allowed to eat pork. They celebrate their Rosh Hashanah. They are Christians again. The Rosh Hashanah, I mean, the beginning of the new Christian year, not in January, like the whole Christian world. They are doing it in September, according to Tishrei, the Jewish days. And so and so. There are many things from the Jewish culture that went to the Christian culture of Ethiopia only. You don't find any other Christian culture in the world which is similar to the Ethiopian culture. Why is it so? How these origins of Judaism approach to Ethiopia, I hope that in the very short time that I have, I will give you the few answers for these things. Before we start, let's understand the map. Ethiopia is very big, more than 1 million square kilometers. It is located in the Horn of Africa, just between Sudan and southern Sudan, northern to Uganda, Kenya, and Somalia. And here, this is the small country of Djibouti. Half of Ethiopia is a desert. All the area that you see like here is a desert, yet the other area, which is just these hills above Lake Tana, this is Lake Tana, this is the source of the Nile. This is the main source of the longest river in the world, the Nile. More than 82% of the water that derives towards north to Cairo and to Egypt, they are sourced in this river, in this lake. In Lake Tana, which is big, yet not too big. There are other lakes all over Africa and the world which are bigger than this one. So all these areas, these are the hills. This is Addis Ababa. the new capital of Ethiopia. I'm saying new because this is the last capital of Ethiopia, the seventh. During its long history of 3,000 years, Ethiopia had six capitals, like Aksum in the north, Lalibella, and other places. Addis Ababa, or it's very similar to Hebrew, because the Amharic language of Ethiopia is a very old and Semitic language, just as the Hebrew. So Hebrew, those of you who knows Hebrew very good, you can understand. Addis means Chadish, that is new. And Abeba means Aviv, like spring. In Amharic, Abeba is not just the season of spring, Aviv, it is also a flower. So this is the new flower, the Addis Ababa. It was it was established at the end of the 19th century. So this is the new capital. And as you can see, Ethiopia has no access to the sea, to the Red Sea. Many years ago, this country, which is Eritrea, was a part of Ethiopia, but no longer. During the colonial times, Eritrea became an Italian colony and Ethiopia not. Now, this geography, which I just showed you, you can see it actually in the national flag of Ethiopia. We have three stripes. Each stripe symbols 1 millennium, because Ethiopia has a history of 3,000 years from biblical times. And each color of these stripes symbolizes something. Here we see the green hills just above Lake Tana, the desert, and the Red Sea. And here in the middle, we see a general symbol. This is a Solomon seal. The Solomon seal, this is not a Star of David, as you can see. The Solomon seal symbolizes the continuity of the regime. That is, the continuity of the rulers of Ethiopia, starting in the 10th century BC until 1974. Another unique thing about Ethiopia, I apologize for the Hebrew, but in general, what we see, this is a map of the colonial Africa. In 1884 and 1885, in Berlin, there was the Berlin Agreement, and seven European countries just divided Africa according to their needs and to their interest. Besides two countries, Liberia, just right here, stayed an independent country, and Ethiopia. The Italians were not able to capture Ethiopia or Abyssinia, and Ethiopia is the only country in Africa which has remained independent. Ethiopia was not a colony. Well, the story of Ethiopia, or how they became a nation, we can find it in the Bible. There was a queen. Her name was, we all know as the Queen of Sheba. Sheba is not the name of a person. It's a name of a geographical area. Back to the map here. Sheba is the area of eastern Ethiopia and Djibouti of today, and Yemen, southern Arabia. This whole area is an old kingdom named Sheba, and that famous queen, she was a ruler of that place, and her Ethiopian name is Makeda, as you can see here. Well, Makeda, as we find in the Bible, in Kings 10, it says like that: when the queen of Sheba heard about the fame of Solomon and his relationship to the Lord, she came to test Solomon with hard questions. Arriving at Jerusalem with a very great caravan, with camels carrying spices, large quantities of gold, and precious stones, she came to Solomon and talked with him about all that she had on her mind. Solomon answered all her questions. Nothing was too hard for the king to explain to her. When the queen of Sheba saw all the wisdom of Solomon and the palace he had built, the food on his table, the seating of his officials, the attending servants in their robes, his cupbearers, and the burnt offerings he made at the temple of the Lord, she was overwhelmed. This is from the Bible. We all know that story. Yet, here we can see here, she meets King Solomon. Later on, she gave birth to a son from King Solomon, and the name of the son in Amharic is Menelik. Now, again, those of you who speak Hebrew will understand that Menelik is the Ethiopian or Amharic version of Ben HaMelech in Hebrew. That is the son of the king. We can say it again. Ben HaMelech, Menelik. So Menelik is the son of the king. That is, he is the son of King Solomon and Queen Makeda from Sheba. And actually, that Menelik is the first Ethiopian ruler of that nation, because when he grew up, he was a boy of 20 years. He went to Jerusalem. He was born in Ethiopia after his mother, Makeda, went back to Ethiopia after the visit in Jerusalem. Then he was born, as I said, he raised, and he went to Jerusalem to meet his father. And then when he was in Jerusalem, he got a present and a nomination from his father, from King Solomon. His father told him, "You are my son. I want you to take this ark, this box, and with the Ark of the Covenant inside, and I want you to take it to the farthest place that I know, that is Kush, or Abyssinia, or Sheba." Ethiopia has many names because it's a place with lots of history. So we call it Ethiopia, we call it Abyssinia, we call it Kush, the name from the Bible, and Sheba, as I said before. So Menelik, according to the Ethiopian version, he got the Ark of the Covenant, the real one, from the temple in Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Just to remind us, we are talking about the first temple period. That is the 10th century BC. He got it from his father. He took it back to Ethiopia. He took it with him back to Ethiopia. And according to the Ethiopian Christian tradition, the real authentic Ark of the Covenant that Moses got from God in the Mount of Sinai and brought it to the Promised Land, and it was based in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, and King Solomon built just about it the shrine and the Temple Mount, was taken or was given by Solomon to his son, to Ethiopia. The Ethiopians are the only culture in the world who believe, and are, it's not a belief, it's not, they are saying, we have the real authentic Ark of the Covenant, and it's in Aksum in northern Ethiopia. You will see it in a few minutes. Just a glance about other places in Ethiopia of today. Here we are standing on a high hill just above Addis Ababa, the new capital of Ethiopia. Addis Ababa is the third highest altitude capital in the world. The altitude here is more than 3,300 meters above sea level. It's a very high place. And here we see the ladies are working there, chopping trees for warming Ethiopia, or for cooking. Here we see, we're still in Addis Ababa. We see the statue of the Emperor Menelik II, not the first one from the biblical times. This is the second one from the 19th century. He was the one who established Addis Ababa according to the advice of his wife. Taitu was her name, and she also built the first hotel in East Africa. That is the Taitu Hotel, which is still inactive, as you can see. A very nice colonial style, yet an Ethiopian management in Addis Ababa. Addis Ababa is a very interesting city. It's very big, more than 3 million people. And although Ethiopia was not a colony, was not a European colony, the colonial aspects of, let's say, architecture and other things got through to Ethiopia. Here we see the main train station from Addis Ababa to Djibouti. It was built by the French people at the end of the 19th century. Here we can see a place in the center of Addis, and I guess that the majority of you are not able to read the Amharic letters here, but you can all see what is written here. And once I go to Addis, I will go walk there with the Israelis or others, and they see this name. You see this word here? Shoah. It says Shoah Bakery, and there's also Shoah Pharmacy, Shoah School. And people are saying to me, Benny, what is this word here? Why are they using this word, which is very sensitive? Well, the meaning is not Shoah, like in Hebrew, Holocaust. It's not. Shoah, in the Amharic version, is their Amharic version for Shva. You know, in Hebrew we say Malkat Shva. And you all know now that Shva or Sheba is a geographical name. So Shoah is the Amharic pronunciation of Shva. There's no connection to that Hebrew word. So this is the geographical name of the area of that place. Like we say Negev or Galil, here we see in the area of Shoah. Ethiopia was under rule of extreme Leninist communism from 1974 until 1991. A very extreme regime actually destroyed Ethiopia and its society, and many people were killed. It was a very bad time for that country. Still today you can see here a statue of Karl Marx, because there was a try to make Ethiopia kind of a Soviet Union branch or something like that. Here you can see it from the close. Karl Marx. Here are entering to the Addis Ababa University. It's a very nice and very good university for African studies, for Ethiopian studies. Many Israeli scholars actually built that university on its former name, the Haile Selassie University, in the 1960s and the 1970s. Let's take a close look to the gate. Take a look what we see here. We see nice lions, we see curves in the architecture in the gate, but take a look what we see here. We see the Star of David. This is not the Seal of Solomon. This is the real Star of David. And there's no connection to Judaism or to Israel. It's here because it symbolizes the roots, the sources of Ethiopia, which are, now you all know, from the first Ethiopian ruler. That is, he's the son of King Solomon from the 10th century BC. This is why they put the Star of David here, to show their roots to the beginning of the nation, which has a kind of a Jewish blood from King Solomon. The university, as I said, was called on the name of the last Ethiopian Kaiser or Emperor, Haile Selassie. I'm sure that some of you remember that figure. He's the one of the most interesting leaders of the 20th century. Haile Selassie was born in 1892, and in 1974 there was a military coup in Ethiopia, and he took off the regime, and then starts the regime, the communist regime over there. In August 1975, he was killed. He was killed by Mengistu Haile Mariam, one of the leaders of the military coup that was taken in 1974. Before that, Haile Selassie was the one who actually built the modern Ethiopia. He was not the only one. His uncle, Menelik II, started it at the end of the 19th century. But in 1930, when Haile Selassie became the ruler of Ethiopia, he made Ethiopia big, he made it real modern, and he made Addis Ababa to be the capital of Africa until today. The offices and the building of the African Union is in Addis Ababa. Here you can see two pictures. First of all, this is from 1930. The Time magazine choose Haile Selassie as the king of the kings. He chose him as the man of the year of that year in 1930, when he became a king, a ruler of Ethiopia. And in 1936, when Mussolini captured Ethiopia and actually destroyed it, Haile Selassie fled from Ethiopia to Britain. He was there for 5 years in southwest Britain, in the town of Bath. But on his way to Britain, he spent 2.5 weeks in Jerusalem. So here you can see one of the famous pictures of Haile Selassie at the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, on the right side. Here we see again the main story, as I told you, quoted from the Bible. King Solomon meeting Queen of Sheba. Now you all know her real name. Her real name is Makeda. You find it only in the Ethiopian books. You don't find a name for that lady, for that famous lady, in our Bible. You find it only in Ethiopia, and also in the Quran, the Islamic Quran. They also gave a name to that lady. They call her the Bilqis. That's her name. Here we see another version of Menelik taking the box, or giving the box from his father, King Solomon, with the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia. Here we are inside Addis Ababa. This is a new church. Inside this church was built in the 1940s by Haile Selassie to commemorate his victory on the Italians. In 1941, he was back in Ethiopia, and Mussolini did not rule Ethiopia anymore. And then Haile Selassie built this church, and later on, when he was killed, as I told you, in August 1975. But in the year 2000, they made him kind of a very nice mausoleum inside this church. So here on the right side, you can see the tomb of Haile Selassie and his wife, the Empress Menen. And on the left, on one of the windows, which is just close to the grave, you can see the sources, the roots where everything started in Jerusalem, the meeting between Solomon and Makeda. I can see Rihanna raise the hand. Raina?
We don't really take questions during the program.
Okay.
We take them afterwards, just to keep the program flowing. So,
okay,
Rihanna, if you have a question, just please put it into chat.
Haile Selassie, when he was staying in Britain for 5 years, his mission was to make a diplomatic work, to show the whole world how one of the countries in the League of Nations was actually this is Ethiopia, the only country in Africa, which now you know, which was not a colony, and it was a member, official member in the League of the Nations, starting from 1922. So he said, here it is a very famous picture of Haile Selassie standing on the podium in Geneva, in Switzerland, the house of the League of the Nations at that time, and he's saying to the whole world, take a look, our country has been destroyed by the other country. He meant to Italy. Another famous picture, 1941, he's back to Ethiopia. Britain and the UK understood the mistake they did by giving Mussolini easy job to capture Ethiopia. So in 1941, it was too late, because the Second World War just it was 3 years before. But now the British understood, they understood their mistake, so they let Haile Selassie to go back to Ethiopia with the Charles Ord Wingate, the famous British officer, a very good friend of Zionism. He escorted him on his way from Egypt to Sudan and to Ethiopia, and here they are putting back up the Ethiopian flag, showing that they are back to rule Ethiopia. But just to say something, once you're in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia has a long history, just even more than 3,000 years. Rather, it's a history that started 3 million years, even 3.2 million years. Here we see one of the famous exhibitions of one of the Homo sapiens, which started there, but actually this is the skull and the bones of the Homo erectus, the first people, or actually hominids, that were walking on 2 feet. It started somewhere on the long area of the lakes of Kenya, Ethiopia, and Tanzania, the river lakes. And here in Ethiopia in 1974, Donald Johnson and researchers, they found these bones of a young woman, and they call it Lucy, just because they heard the famous song of the Beatles, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, so they decided to call to these remains Lucy. This is the missing link, actually, showing that how the human beings started to walk on 2 feet in East Africa. That is when we say the cradle of humankind, it starts in Africa, something like 3 to 3.2 million of years from our time. And this exhibit is very unique, the exhibit of Lucy. We leave Addis Ababa, we go up. If you could just turn off the mics, please. Guys, you can take, thank you. We are taking an internal flight of less than 1 hour, and we are in the Lake Tana area. Here we see the River Nile. This is the River Nile. This is where it starts. Here you see, I'm standing here on a hill. I see the Lake Tana, and on the southern part of it, this is the beginning of the flow of the longest rivers in the world, more than 6,785 kilometers. Starting here in Lake Tana in Ethiopia, the other source is from Uganda, from Lake Victoria. They are both joining the Blue Nile and the White Nile. They joined together in Khartoum in Sudan, and then they flowed north to Egypt. As you can see here, Ethiopia, the Blue Nile, Uganda, Lake Victoria, and the White Nile. This is Khartoum in Sudan, and they flow to the north to Cairo and to the Middle East and the Mediterranean Sea. It starts here, what you see in the pictures. 30 kilometers south to the lake, this is the first place that the river, there's a waterfall. This is the first point where the river Nile goes on this area. This is how it looks all year round. Beautiful area. The Nile falls. This is during the low season when there's less rain, so you see lots of mud and sand. The water are clean, but there are lots of sand over there. The Nile falls. Take a look. This is the first bridge ever made, the man-made bridge above the Nile. Today we have in Cairo more than 17 bridges in Cairo itself on the Nile. We have also bridges in Aswan, the big dam, you know, and we have in Sudan and Ethiopia. But what we see here, this bridge was built at the beginning of the 17th century by one of the Portuguese kings who came to Ethiopia, and he had them to build a man-made new bridge just above the Nile. We can cross it from the side. Fresh, good water of the Nile. Here we are in the northern part of Ethiopia, in the city of Aksum. Aksum was the capital. Actually, this is the first capital of Ethiopia starting from the 10th century BC. In the heart of Aksum, there is a field of obelisks, more than 1,000 obelisks. Each obelisk is made of granite, and it's a tomb. It's a grave of a king or another high rank officials of Ethiopia, of Aksum, from the 5th century BC until 3rd or 4th century AD. So you find it's a kind of a big cemetery. You can see each obelisk stands just above a big cave with all the treasures of these kings from that time. You can go underground. You see lots of archaeology and lots of rooms. In each room, in each section, each niche, there is another grave of the family of the king, of the official, and all their treasures. If you like, it's a kind of, this is the Ethiopian version of the pyramids. It was built many, many years after the pyramids, of course. Yet it shows that this country had a legacy. It used to have politics and history and regime. There's no other country in Africa beside Egypt that has lots of political legacy like Aksum in ancient Ethiopia. If you ask how they build those obelisks, they carved them in the rock, and then they brought them on elephants, bringing them, making a kind of a hole in the ground, putting it, and then pulling it up, and then it goes down. When everything was working good according to the plan, it was working okay, but sometimes there are mistakes. Take a look. Guys, what you see here, this is the biggest obelisk in the world. It was falling down here in Aksum. We all know very famous obelisks. I remember something in near the Metropolitan Museum in New York. There is, I think, an obelisk from Egypt, maybe, and the obelisks were taken by the Europeans from Egypt to Paris and to London, but the obelisk of Ethiopia are bigger, much, much bigger and longer. This is the height of this fallen, damaged obelisk is more than 33 meters and more than 520 tons. This is from the other side. It's the same. It was just collapsed. The researchers are thinking that it has been collapsed in the 2nd century AD, and they don't know why. Maybe there was too much rain here. We are in Ethiopia, not in Egypt. There's lots of rain here, so maybe there was too much mud in the ground, and it was not stable for the granite obelisk, so it fell down and broke down, as you can see. And they left it just like this. Here, another small, tiny obelisk that was broken also. Another one. What we see here, we just go out of Aksum, on the skirts of Aksum, you see a remains of a palace. There is a kind of assumption that maybe this is the palace of Queen of Sheba, maybe. It's not so. If it is not this palace itself. It is only the base. You see the steps here in the middle. If it was the palace of Queen of Sheba which used to live in the 10th century BC, we're talking here only about this inner place for the base for the altar. All the other walls here were built much, much later. But as a kind of a story, it's very nice to tell. Here we see another building just outside of the Aksum. This is the oldest building in Africa besides the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. This building, it's a kind of a shrine, a small shrine, man-made. It's from the 5th century BC. 5th century BC. We have buildings like that also in Yemen. Now you all know that the area of eastern Ethiopia and Yemen in the Arabian Peninsula was named Sheba. Sheba, or South Arabian, was an ancient emperor, and they used to build shrines just like this. Inside this is another angle of this shrine. It's beautiful, and it's very ancient. Only the pyramids are older than this building. Inside, you can see remains of a basement for altar, for giving presents for God. You can find, we saw them in the archaeological excavations. We saw necklaces. We saw stamps of kings and officials. If you take this nice ibex stamp, you can see here words. It's like you took ink and you put it to sign letters and papers officially. Again, just to remind us, we are in Africa, and this is the 5th century BC. There is officials here and political regime and management and public management. And now we are back to Aksum. In this small chapel, the Ethiopians believe, or it's not a belief, they know, they say, according to, I think you will not find any Ethiopian person who will say that this thing is not true. They believe, they are saying that inside this chapel, there's the real authentic Ark of the Covenant that was taken from Jerusalem 3,000 years ago. Well, although this building is very new, this specific building was built by Haile Selassie in 1950. But before that, the Ark was kept for hundreds, actually thousands of years in an ancient church just beside this place. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Ark of the Covenant. Believe it or not, it is covered. It is covered with a red nice cloth, very similar to what we find here in what we find in synagogues. You know, the parochet. On the right side, you see the highest priest, the bishop of Aksum. He's taking care of the Ark. And if you have any expectation that they will open the box and show us those two nice tablets with the 10 Commandments, you can forget about it, because they are not doing it. And actually, now I'll give you a well-known secret. The real Ark of Covenant, if it's in Ethiopia, if it's in Aksum, is remained in that chapel that you saw before all year round. They don't take it out, never. Only one day in a year, in January the 18th. That is the ceremonies of the Epiphany. They take out a replica of the Ark of the Covenant, and this is what you see here in the picture I took in Aksum. You can ask, okay, so what do we do with other churches all over Ethiopia and other Ethiopian churches, let's say in Jerusalem? We have here we have in Jerusalem a community of 1,000 Christian people, Ethiopians, who live in Jerusalem. Well, here in Jerusalem and in Ethiopia, there are many, many churches, tens and thousands of them. Each Ethiopian church, it looks more or less like this. It is circle shape to make a round, and inside you can find many, many nice pictures of historical events and political events. Well, here you see it's a picture of on the wall. You can see here the Ethiopian soldiers are killing and defeating the Muslim enemy on the ground. And you can find also storytellings from the new covenant. Maria and Jesus, the crucifixion in the Golgotha in Jerusalem. All the stories of Christianity were brought to Ethiopia. We need to say, Ethiopia is the third country that became Christian after Armenia and Byzantine. It was in the beginning of the 4th century. So Ethiopia is one of the oldest Christian cultures in the world, and also is very similar to Judaism, as I said before. How are they connected to Judaism? Maybe because there was a people from Jerusalem who went back to Ethiopia with Menelik and the Ark of the Covenant in the 10th century BC. There is a saying that he came back, he left Jerusalem with a delegation of more than 12,000 people. 1,000 from each of the 12 tribes of the people of Israel. And this is the core for the beginning of the Beta Israel, the Jewish community of Ethiopia. And they brought those Jewish customs to Ethiopia. Shabbat, Rosh Hashanah, not eating pork, Brit Milah, circumcision. Yes, yes. The Christian Ethiopians, they are doing the circumcision ceremony for the boy at the 8th day of his life, 8 days after the birth, just as the Jews. Well, you've been traveling and reading about the world. There is no other Christian culture in the world who are doing all these things for hundreds and hundreds of years. If you ask about the Amharic letters or iconography, in each church, there are books, ancient books who are showing in pictures and in text all the history of Ethiopia. It is written from left to right. And every time you see a name of a holy place or holy person, it is in a red color. We need to say, in Africa, there are more than 1.1 billion of people, more than 55 countries, and more than 8,000 languages. But there's only one country which has his own letters, signs of letters, that is Ethiopia. All the other countries of Africa are using the Latin letters, ABC, or the Arab letters that the Islam brought there. Ethiopia is the only one who is using a very, very ancient Semitic language, that is the Amhara and the Ge'ez, which is the written one, what you see here. Before that, I want to read you something. It is not written here, but it's the other page. The main question is how Ethiopia became Christian. It is only in the 4th century. Well, our source for that is in the New Testament. It says here, it says over there like that. There is that story. I'm reading from the New Testament. Then an angel of the Lord said to Philip, "Get up and go towards the south to the road that goes down from Jerusalem to Gaza." So he got up and went. Now there was an Ethiopian eunuch, a court official of Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, in charge of her entire treasury. He had come to Jerusalem to worship and was returning back home. Seated in his chariot, he was reading the prophet Isaiah. Then the Spirit said to Philip, "Go over to this chariot and join it." So Philip ran up to it and heard him reading the prophet Isaiah. He asked the Ethiopian, "Do you understand what you are reading?" He replied, "How can I, unless someone guides me?" And he invited Philip to get in and sit beside him. Later on, Philip began to speak, and starting with this scripture, he proclaimed to him the good news about Jesus. As they were going along the road, they came to some water, and the eunuch said, "Look, here is water. What is to prevent me from being baptized?" So he commanded the chariot to stop, and both of them, Philip and the eunuch, went down into the water, and Philip baptized him. This is the story of how Ethiopia became Christian in the 1st century, according to the New Testament. Later on, in the 4th century, there was another Ethiopian king who decided, he made a decision to convert to Christianity. So Ethiopian people got that religion since then until today. In the 12th century, where you can understand that we are moving here in time, and I'm putting in 15 minutes or something like that, history of, which I need a longer semester to speak about all of the history of Ethiopia. In the 12th century, there was the local ruler of Ethiopia was named the King Lalibella. He ruled from 1167 until 1207, and his name is the name of the small village in the mountains of Ethiopia that he built it in a very unique way. You can see it on the picture from the right. Actually, King Lalibella built the capital of Ethiopia, which was the capital of Ethiopia for more than 160 years, and he carved it underground as a model of a new Black Jerusalem. Because at that time, 20 years after he began his reign, in the year 1187, the real Jerusalem, the real land, the Holy Land, was captured by Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi. All the Crusaders went back to Europe. Islam was here back in this area, and the King Lalibella in Ethiopia said, "Oh my God, we are not have no access to real Jerusalem for the pilgrims. What shall we do?" Well, all the other Christians in the world went back to their homes and suffered, but there was only one country, a Christian country, which did not surrender. They built themselves an alternative, a replica of the churches of Jerusalem in the underground. So this is what you see here. A carved and underground in the rock, hewn rock churches, 13 in number, in the town of Lalibella, which is still active today. It's not an archaeological museum. It's a place where people are worship. You can also travel and walk there, and each church is active. There are monks and priests inside who keep all the treasuries, and especially the story of Lalibella, the capital of Ethiopia from the 12th century. Each one of these churches is symbolizing another real church in Jerusalem, or Mount of Olives, or the Tomb of Maria, the Golgotha, the Tomb of Adam. They have also River Jordan. Yes, they have a kind of a alternative for the real Jerusalem. They have their own Black Jerusalem in Ethiopia. Here again, we see one of my friends over there in one of the monasteries, showing us one of the books, telling all the Ethiopian stories. This is the famous picture. I mean, the most famous pictures of Lalibella. This is the biggest and the only church which you can see from the sky, from the above. This church is named Betagogius, the House of George, and it is in a cross of a shape. It has 3 stories. It's very big. And this is supposed to be one of the, not only the symbols of Ethiopia and Lalibella, it was built like that, so this will be the only one that God will be able to see it from the sky. It's a magnificent place. It's all man-made. It's from the 12th century, as I said, and it is not, I just want to emphasize, the rock-hewn churches of Lalibella were not built. They were carved from the rock. There was a rocky hill here. They started to dig and take the rock out, and then they left it with this thing, and then they started to carve it and took it the rock from the inside. And today inside it looks like this, with rooms and chapels and niches and places to live. It's all man-made, and it's all inside this church, Betagogius. Well, finally, this is the last pictures. You can read for yourself. Bruchim habaim lekfar hafalashim. Beside of Islam and of course Christianity, Ethiopia has a long legacy of one of the longest and fascinating stories of Jewish communities in the world. The Jews of Ethiopia arrived there in the 10th century BC, maybe with Menelik, maybe after the destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem in the 6th century BC, maybe also in the 1st century AD after the second destruction by the Roman Empire. Anyhow, for many, many years, the Ethiopian Jewry was a very important part of the Ethiopian mosaic. And these things, the important things, and with this I will conclude, they were revealed to the world only at the end of the 19th century or the beginning of the 20th century by European French scholars. They were Dr. Yaakov Feitlovich. He was the person who really wrote about them in Europe, and he was surprised, he was in shock to see that there are Jews. He made three journeys to travel to Ethiopia, and he met the Ethiopian Jews. He was shocked to see that there are black people, Jews, in Africa, and vice versa. They were shocked. I mean, the Jews of Ethiopia were shocked to see that there are Jews who are white people, because they never knew, didn't know any information about the outworld which is out of Ethiopia. Well, we all know in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, there were operations to bring those Jews, our brothers, here to Israel. The Operation Solomon, Operation Bin Nun, Operation Moses, and others. And today in Ethiopia, there are left something like between 6,000 to 7,000 people who are saying that they are they have roots for Judaism, and let's hope that they will join their families here in Israel soon. So, what can I conclude? Bruchim habayim lekfar Afalashim, and I really hope that we will be able to visit Ethiopia again. Today, Ethiopia is under political and social, especially an army problems in the north over there, so it's not so easy to travel there. So let's hope it will be able to visit them again. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. This was really wonderful. There were a couple of questions in the chat. I'd like to begin with one, which is it, you mentioned that there is one church that claims to have the Ark, the Holy Ark. Is that sort of a universally accepted belief in Ethiopia, or do different churches say, no, we have the real Ark?
No, there is no other culture or community or other people in the universe who are saying we have the Ark of the Covenant. Only the Ethiopian Christians. Even though we, the Jews, speaking theological or academic, this question is not so important, whether it's under the remains in the Temple Mount, whether it was taken to Rome. We all know the famous place in Rome, the triumph of the victory over there. Maybe it's in Damascus, in Cairo, in Babylon. It's an enigma. This is one of the biggest enigmas of humankind. Where is the Ark of the Covenant? There's only the Ethiopians that are saying we are there. And officially or scientifically, it was not tested ever, because the Ethiopians are not allowed to show it outside. There were a few researchers who went inside that chapel or something like that, but it's a tradition. And if you ask scholars over there, Ethiopia, since when is that tradition that the Ark of the Covenant from Jerusalem is in Aksum? We can read it in one of the books, the Ethiopian books, which was written only in the 14th century AD. So you can understand for yourself, and we all understand, that the reliability of that myth is maybe not so strong, because once you write something 2,400 years after, it's not so reliable. But the argument is not with me. More than 60 million Ethiopians believe that this is one of the core principles of their tradition.
Right. Well, listen, I mean, I think on behalf of all movie watchers, we're glad that Steven Spielberg didn't hear about it, because we would have been robbed of Raiders of the Lost Ark. But
yeah. Meanwhile, Charlie, as we said before, as we conclude and finish, I will email you a link to a video I took in. I've been there many times, but one of them I will show you a link you can watch by yourself and see. You will see there the ceremony of taking out the ark from that chapel and walking. It will look like to all of you like a ceremony from a biblical movie, but it's not a show for tourists. It's the holiest day on their calendar, the day of Timkat, January 18. They celebrate the idea and the principle that the Ark of the Covenant, the real one from Jerusalem, or from Mount Sinai originally, is over there in Aksum.
Wow. A few other questions that were in the chat, just the earlier ones. Someone asked if the neighboring countries like Eritrea also practices Christianity like the one in Ethiopia.
It's a good question. When we say Ethiopian Christianity, we're talking about a religion. It's like saying Judaism, it's like saying Islam, it's like saying Armenian Christianity. There are few sectors or groups in the Christianity who are very unique. You cannot be an Ethiopian Christian unless you were born as an Ethiopian person. So in Eritrea, as I said before, Eritrea used to be, when we say Eritrea, it's Eritrea is a geographical of ancient Ethiopia, of a part.
There's an issue with my computer. I'm sorry about that.
Eritrea is a geographical name. It's like saying in Israel, the Negev, or the Galilee, or Judea and Samaria, whatever. So Eritrea used to be from thousands of years. It was a part of Ethiopia. In the colonial time, as I said, Eritrea became to be an Italian colony, yet the people over there were Christians. Okay, there are also Muslims, so as in Ethiopia. But Eritrea, the people who are there, they are Christians, they are Ethiopian Christians, and they believe in all the principles that I showed before.
Great. There was another question that we got about the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, whether or not the Ethiopian community, the Ethiopian Christian community, has any sort of claim on it.
Good. Yeah. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem is a big church with lots of sects and lots of Christian groups. One of them in that Jerusalem Christian mosaic is the Ethiopian. And there is an argument between the Ethiopian Christians and the Egyptian Christians. These are the Coptic people. The argument is about who will rule a section of that church. And this argument is therefore something, it starts in the 1840s, almost 200 years. It's about who will control that part of the roof of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Since 1967, when Israel is controlling Jerusalem finally and the old city, in 1970, the High Supreme Court of Israel decided that the keys to those two doors leading to that area will need to go back to the Ethiopian community. And even, we all remember the visit of Anwar Sadat, the president of Egypt, in 1977. He tried to appeal to Israel, said, bring back the keys to the Coptic, to the Egyptians. It was never fulfilled. I mean, the keys since 1970 are in the hands of the Ethiopian community.
So another question that was in the chat had to do with, it appears that Ethiopian society has a deep respect for its Jewish roots, or has respect for its Jewish roots. And if that's the case, where did the discrimination come from against the Falasha community? Even the name Falasha is not a good word, right? It means an outcast or stranger, right? Something of that nature.
Yeah. Falasha, again, like in Hebrew, it derives from the word polish, invader. It's not a nice name. It's a nickname. It's a nickname. The people, I mean, the Jews in Ethiopia, they call themselves Beta Israel, the house of Israel. They don't call themselves Falasha. Yet it's a common name, but it's not in a positive meaning. Yeah, Falasha, and there's also the Falashmura, Falashi Mumarim. That is Jews who were converted, Mumarim, converted by force to Christianity at the end of the 19th century. It's a complicated story. I'm not sure if we have enough time for this now, but it's very sensitive. Yeah.
So, but in terms of where did that discrimination come from?
The discrimination between whom?
Like between the Christian Ethiopians and the Jewish Ethiopians? Or is that part of the story that we just know from other parts of the world?
It's more or less like we know the story between Jewish communities all over the world and the local hosting community. That is Christians, Muslims, whatever. The point here, if we speaking about Ethiopia, it's different. It's different. It was not a honeymoon for all those hundreds of years. There were clashes and conflicts. Yet we need to remember that there were villages of Jewish communities just beside a village of Christian Ethiopians. And remember, they were both, the principles of religion are very much the same. This is something you don't find all over the world. Christians who live just beside Jews and doing circumcision, Brit Milah, for the boy at the eighth day. Keep Shabbat and Shemitah and Nida and all the Jewish practices. It's amazing.
Another question I just want to ask you is about the photographs that you took. Most of the photographs that we saw today in the presentation, those are yours, right?
Of course.
No, they're fantastic. So
I'm traveling in Ethiopia for more than 27 years.
Right.
You will see the videos. I will email it to you later. There is a long video. I think it's 20 minutes or something like that of in Aksum in the ceremony of the Ark of the Covenant, and there is a very short video of 2 minutes, very commercial, about Lalibella. It's in Hebrew, but you will enjoy it.
All right. You've been to Ethiopia for over 30 years and been leading groups there. What's your, what spot in the country moves you every time you go?
Oh, there's no doubt.
What's that?
There's no doubt. There's Lalibella. Lalibella, it is not one of the official wonders of the world, but it's a unique place. It is amazing because it's architecture, engineering, geography, geology, culture, religion. You don't find a place like that. A community who decided 900 years ago to make to itself an alternative to Jerusalem. And they built themselves something which, again, it's not a museum. Today, it's not a museum. It's like the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. It's like the Western Wall, and it's like Temple Mount. That is, it's an historical place with a relevant, active place for pilgrims.
Fantastic. And So when are you going back to Ethiopia?
Oh, not soon, unfortunately. You all read the news. You see, exactly 1 year ago, in November last year, there was a beginning of, it is something between, there are lots of clashes between the group of the Tigrays in the north in Ethiopia and the central government of Ethiopia. Many people were killed, there were exiles, there's hunger. It's a very problematic political, social, inner problem of Ethiopia. And it's, plus the COVID, people are not traveling, unfortunately, now to Ethiopia. Let's hope that once everything will calm down, that we'll be able to come and visit that place again. Ethiopia is amazing. I mean, well, I'm traveling only in Africa, as I said, but the people who are coming to Africa with me, they've been traveling all over the world, like you guys, I guess. And everybody are saying, it's not similar to anything, maybe a bit to Egypt, but even Egypt is unique for itself. But Ethiopia, with all the connection to Judaism and to Jerusalem and with the Amhara and the Ark of the Covenant and their calendar, it's weird. It's weird.
There with you. Let me just ask you one last question. This has just been an amazing presentation, as always. In terms of the holiday of Sigd, is that holiday only known within the Jewish community, or is it known throughout the country?
It's all outside the country. It's a cultural day. I mean, it's people go to work. It's a normal day. It's not like Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, or Passover. But there are many ceremonies and festivals, especially only in Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, it's a kind of a cultural day. In Israel today, we have a community of Israel today. I think it's 250,000 Israelis are originally from Ethiopia. By the way, 80% of them are Israeli born here. It's a second and third generation. There are Israelis like me. But it's a cultural day. They are commemorating that event from Ethiopia, which is no longer in Ethiopia. It's here in front of Jerusalem because they fulfilled to come to the promised land.
It's an amazing thing. Well, listen, on behalf of CSP, I just want to thank you so much for a wonderful presentation today. I want to thank everyone for being here today. This was wonderful, and we really can't wait to go on another travel adventure with you. So keep traveling wherever you can. Keep taking your pictures because they're excellent. And everybody, we're looking forward to seeing everybody real soon. So have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.